This is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. And whoa, Rachel Barcelona is here from Florida. Check this out. How'd you get here?
Magic.
Wow, that is great. And Stephanie.
Wait. We have a celebrity guest on? You didn't tell me this.
Yes, I'm here. You mean Rachel.
Yes,
Rachel.
He's here.
Well, Rachel's a celebrity. We have a star amongst us.
Oh, me. Okay.
There we go. That's Rachel. But Stephanie, you didn't know I'm the one playing the piano during our intro. Did you know that?
Are you tugging at me, or is this like real?
No, I'm tugging at you. No, it can be real if you wanted to. Only a few people are watching right now, but it's all good.
Well, you can practice. I mean, you
practice.
get good at anything. You just need to practice, Steve.
Yes, practice makes perfect. And last week I was running to Florida. I was late. I was at Kennedy Airport. I'm on time today, so we're all good. And I brought Rachel Barcelona is in from Tampa. So
yes.
How do you like New York again?
Well, I love it, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and she does so many great things, Stephanie. I know you've known her for a couple of years now through the show and different things. You actually said you saw her on a billboard in New York City.
Yeah, it's been a while, obviously, since I was in New York City, but I was in New York City with friends happening to go through, I was at Times Square, and I look over and I'm like, wait, that's Rachel Barcelona. Like, I know her because when we were like, I would bring her on your show during, so I was like, I know that face.
That's right.
Yeah.
Stephanie brought us together. You were the queen of StreamYard back then.
Yeah, back in the day. Which, hint to anybody, StreamYard's not easy. But no. Steve, as amazing as he is, clicking the start button on StreamYard was beyond his ability. But luckily, I was there to help him because we're yin and yang in relationships.
Yes. All right. So just blew that too, Stephanie. I'm not the piano player. I don't know how to use StreamYard. What the heck am I doing here?
Well, you have a great personality.
Oh, okay. That's what it is. Okay. You recovered well, Stephanie. You recovered well. But this is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. And today we have Rachel Barcelona, who's our special guest. And she's doing so many wonderful things. We're here every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Stephanie's in Texas. We're in New York. So we kind of do this thing each and every week to help people out there because, unfortunately, there's a lot of unhealthy relationships.
Especially now, since we have COVID. I think I see this with a lot of my friends, especially. I don't know about everyone. All the need to rush into relationships. And as a result, they become very, very toxic. What do you think? Is that true?
I believe that is so true. She's spot on.
Yeah. I think that there's this, and I almost want to say that right now, a lot of excitement over the pandemic being quote unquote over. And so people are just going out there and looking to start, they're lonely, they're looking to meet people. And so I think the unhealthy relationships are just going to increase because they're looking to just attach themselves to the first person who's even remotely nice to them.
Yes, and I'm saying this, don't get attached too quickly. And I don't know, I'm here to talk about my story.
Yes.
So I want to start with the positives before I get to the negatives. I just came out and I'm taking it really, really slow, slower than a snail trapped in a sea of molasses. I like to describe that. I'm a writer. I love to be flowery, but taking it really slow with this girl that I really, she means a lot to me. And that's my philosophy. You can't just rush into something because that's how things turn sour real quick. And I've seen it happen a lot with a lot of my friends. They just get with the first person that's nice to them, and that even leads to abuse. And it makes me very sad because I went through a lot of abusive relationships.
I agree. I think that taking it slow is really important. And, one of the biggest things I teach my clients is get to really know yourself so that you know what you want in a relationship. Because what happens a lot of times, especially when we're younger, and I'll take that back. It's not even when we're younger. I think this happens throughout your lifetime. But I think people don't really know who they are or what they want, but they want a relationship. and then they find someone who's not really the right fit for them, and then they do everything they can to force that relationship to work, when if they just let it go, they would actually be able to find someone who was a better fit for them, that would actually bring out the best in them instead of bring out the worst in them.
Right, right. That's a great point you're both bringing up, and we're going to get more into that in a little while. But our viewers need to know a little bit what Rachel Barcelona does and why she does it. So, Rachel, you just came out with your first and a nonprofit organization. That's incredible. Congratulations.
Yeah, another coming out story.
Yes, talk about Ability Beyond Disabilities.
Well, that's the logo, and Ability Beyond Disabilities is very special to me as well. It's been my life's work, literally, because it all started with a dream when I was in middle school, and I'm 24 now. And I started it because I was being bullied for having autism. Give up. I started writing positive notes and putting them on my bullies' lockers. You know, simple stuff like, I love your hair today. I love the stupid joke that you make in the locker room, even though it's not funny. You're just trying to impress your jock friends. But, you know, everyone needs to be shown that they matter. We all have a place in this world. And even if we are quote unquote neurotypical, people might think we have a disability that we can't help. And that's why it was started, because everyone needs to know that they're not alone. So it's a nonprofit, finally, and yay!
Yes.
And I just got my first donation of $500, and that money is going to go to therapies and so many things that families cannot afford.
That's wonderful. At 24, I wasn't doing that. I know that. I know about you, Steph.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I can't. I'm like 24. I don't even know. I don't remember what I was doing, which is probably not a good sign either. I was already in a toxic relationship, that's for sure. But
I just got out of one, so.
I think that one of the things that I love, and we got to talk a little bit about this before the show, is that one of the biggest issues we have in this country is the mental health issue.
Right.
And I think that when it comes to mental health, when you look at health insurance, when you look at how people deal with mental health, I mean, it's not looked at in a very serious way. If you didn't have positive mental health, Rachel, you wouldn't be creating this amazing nonprofit. So that's why, like, to be able to feel good about yourself, to have good self-esteem, to be able to work through some of the things that you might have had to work through to get here, everybody needs to have that ability. And if we can, imagine what a better place the world would be if everyone had access to that kind of support.
Absolutely. And I feel like there is such a stigma on mental health, and I've been working my whole life to combat it. And ultimately, Ability Beyond Disabilities, that is my message. We need to be more open about our mental health. And when I had 3 abusive relationships. I was always taught to keep it all inside. My mental health didn't matter. I was crazy, because I went through a lot of emotional abuse, and that's what I was told. But that's not the message I want to portray. I just want people, no matter what they're going through, to feel comfortable in their own skin.
Mm-hmm.
It's well said. And you know, there's so many young people that, and sometimes it takes months or years to get to that point. And I think, Stephanie, the work that you and I do is so very important, because sometimes people are in denial, they're afraid to leave, or they're just challenged by life circumstances that they think, I'm going to stay in here, or just simply scared. I mean, there's a lot of emotions that go on. I hear Rachel talking, and we've been talking for 2 years now about the situation that you've been in, but you've been helping so many women out there that are going to similar things that Rachel just presented.
Well, what happens is that when we are coming from a place of, we might have the confidence which, you know, obviously with things that you do, Rachel, the confidence has been there, but sometimes our self-esteem is low. And that was me. My confidence was okay, but my self-esteem was low. And people get a little bit confused by that. Like, how is it that you could have high confidence and low self-esteem? Well, you can walk into a room and work the room and all that, but then go home and feel bad about yourself and wonder like who likes you and question all your abilities and question yourself. You know, the thing is that when we start a relationship with someone, if they are someone who is healthy, they're going to be respectful of our boundaries. They're going to be supportive. But when we have low self-esteem and we start a relationship with someone, what they do is they poke at that low self-esteem and they use that against us for their own benefit. So when we don't feel good about ourselves, we don't feel that strong, you know, good self-esteem, then we don't really feel like we genuinely deserve a great relationship, like we deserve to be treated well because of the thoughts that we've told ourselves in our own head. So as soon as that person says all those things, we kind of agree with it. Like we don't want to, but it's subconsciously, we just kind of get sucked in because then we just want to prove ourselves to this person and prove that we are worthy. Instead of if we had high self-esteem and felt better about ourselves, we'd be like, I don't need to prove myself to you. And we'd be out the door.
And I totally agree with that because with all of my relationships, I had zero self-esteem. I didn't want anything. I didn't think I deserved love at all. I was in that same position. I would take whoever was nice to me. And with my most recent breakup, I mean, it was a relief, but I was scared to leave every single one because I had nothing. Even though my parents, they told me to do it, and I always listened to my parents, but I couldn't. I know my last boyfriend, because at the time I only thought man and woman was acceptable. Another story about that, but it's just not. He wanted to separate me from my mom. You know, I'm sure you understand that emulation trying to separate you from your parents.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really hard. But I think nowadays I feel like my boundaries are being respected and I feel a lot happier versus the time I wanted to cut off my ring finger because I thought I didn't even deserve love or a marriage.
Yeah. And that's, you know, one of the things that people do when they're trying to control us is they try to separate us from friends and family. It's
Yes.
a typical thing that they do. And the reason for that is because they want us to feel like it's only them. All we have is them.
Yes.
But, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, it is better to be alone than to feel alone with someone that is treating you badly.
And that's what I was for a very long time. I just thought it would be a lot better for me to just be by myself than being with people that I was forced to kind of be with. I mean, I don't want to throw shade at my mom or any parents or anything, but my partners were autistic. And I can kind of understand why she would do that because I really like dating people who are autistic. They understand me better. But it seemed like the boys, they always had this sort of possession complex over me. And I just thought that was the weirdest thing. But I get it now. Now that I have more experience, it was just, I had to walk away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Steph. Go ahead.
Well, you know, it just makes me think, though, is that whether it's no matter what that's coming from, that feeling of this is the best I'm going to get. But I think that one of the issues that I work with clients all the time with is we are accepting breadcrumbs and accepting basic. The biggest issue that we need help with is learning that we deserve way more, because sometimes people will say, you know, I think I just ask for too much in relationships and that's why my relationships don't work. But it isn't because of that at all. It's actually the opposite. It's that we're not picky enough in our relationships with who we choose to be in a relationship with. And again, it starts with our own self-esteem. So, you know, you were dating people that were autistic as well, and you said that made you feel comfortable. but it sounded like they were insecure about themselves. So then they wanted to kind of bring you down instead of them leveling up to be better people. It was much easier to try to make you feel bad. And then in so doing, trying to control you and keep you around.
Yeah, and I really didn't want to date boys. I also feel like I was dating them to please others because I was afraid, and it just wasn't for me. I remember my last partner, I even told him, I came out to him, and all I got was, we can fix that, and even more.
See, I laugh because it was like, how do you fix that? Like, so that's such a ridiculous thing for them to say, to again just try to keep a control, keep a leash on you, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. This is Kick Unhealthy Relationships at the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro, and that's Rachel Barcelona, who does so many incredible things. And we're going to go further into this. But Rachel, I have a question for you.
What's that?
You've been through these difficult relationships, but you've been able to do such amazing work for so many at a young age. How did you flip that switch to help others when you were going through some difficult times yourself?
Well, there I am. That was one of my billboards.
Okay.
But it's not about that. I just always loved helping people. I think it started from when I was this tall.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that when we have gone through a lot of things, you can either use it to help people or for positive or for negative. And I just want to be positive.
Well, that's the right approach, and we're going to get more in detail. But you're here in New York less than 48 hours, and you were asked to sing the national anthem for a gentleman that recently passed away due to complications of cancer to 9/11. That's Louis G. Alvarez, who is a Long Island native, Oceanside. He was a New York City detective, and he was part of the bomb squad after 9/11. And he's a hero. He is a hero for so many people. But that's him in front of Congress only several weeks before he passed away. What this gentleman did was to advocate for other first responders and people that went down to ground zero, and to support them in health benefits for the long term, because we all found out afterwards that soot, that smoke that was resonating through New York City was cancerous, and there were so many people that were affected by it. So he was able to stand in front of Congress right there, only weeks before he passed away, and his bill came out to support others till 2092. So because of this guy, Mr. Alvarez, he's a hero. Other people will get the chance to have funding to support their health benefits. And Rachel Barcelona was asked to sing the national anthem at a park in Long Island in Oceanside, a park dedicated for him. That's Rachel and I, Louis G. Alvarez Memorial Park. And it was such a great time to see the family. It was bittersweet because they lost their hero, but a park here. That's Lainey Alvarez on the right. That is Rachel on her right. That's Robin, who's a former co-host of mine that kind of helped me work with the people that organized this event to get us in there to support anthem. It was a beautiful day yesterday. And we want to show you a clip because Laura Curran, the Nassau County executive, introduced Rachel to kick off this whole event yesterday, and Rachel did a great job in supporting the Alvarez family.
It was very windy.
It was very windy. So let's check out Rachel Barcelona singing the national anthem.
Nonprofit called Ability Beyond Disabilities. So Rachel, take it away.
Well, before we begin this joyous moment, I want to say big thanks to the Alvarez family, because nobody represents this joyous song of our country more than them. So, yay, I love you guys. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
I've gotten a lot of criticisms about my singing. Like when I first started singing the anthem, I do this high note, but that's only reserved for stadiums and all that.
I think that was beautiful. First of all, the fact that you even like the national anthem is really hard to sing because it's so much difference in. I'm so not a singer, you can tell. Like it's so different with the. But it's so hard to sing, and the fact that you're just singing it a cappella in front of a large audience like that, I mean, that's brilliant. That's amazing.
And such an important cause. So it's amazing. Sing a couple tunes. Can you give us a couple tunes?
Maybe.
Maybe next time. Maybe next time. But you know what? It really captured the moment. And in the background, that was Lainey Alvarez, the widow of Luis Alvarez. He's a hero. There was New York City Bomb Squad was there. A lot of dignitaries there. Peter King was there. You met Peter King yesterday. And there's Rachel and Peter King. And they all came up to Rachel after she sang. And she was a superstar there because she really brightened the day. And with the family, they were all smiling and they all came up to her. That is Luis's brother, Phil. Amazing guy, amazing family. And it's hard. 20 years, Stephanie, it's gonna be 20 years in September. Can you believe that?
It's unbelievable. I mean, when I was still teaching, I just remember having one of my students that lost her father in 9/11. But then as I continued teaching, I would bring up 9/11, and less kids really had that kind of firsthand experience with it. So it feels like it was just yesterday, but at the same time feels like a long time ago. How does it feel for you, Steve?
I was actually living in Baltimore at the time, and about 15-20 minutes out, 45 minutes outside Washington, D.C. My daughters were in elementary school, and I was a director to a program. I was on my way to do a group at 9:30 that morning when I heard the first tower go down or what happened. I said, oh my God, that's terrible. But then I heard the second tower. When that went down, I felt like that was definitely a terrorist attack. So I actually took 4 days off and I went back to New York because I had people that working in that area. And I camped out on the West Side Highway with hundreds and hundreds of people from all around the world, forming like a human chain. Like we would hand out food and medical supplies and dog food and flashlights to the Con Ed people that were coming down the West Side Highway. So we were all there, but also I was there to counsel some of the people that were there, just kind of picked up and did it. So when I look back 20 years already, and my daughter, I have to tell this story, a couple of days after my oldest daughter, Giovanna, we were sitting on the porch in Maryland, and we were sitting outside, and this is when they first released the planes to fly over again. And we were watching this plane fly over, and she asked me, Daddy, what does hijack mean? Because I felt like, wow, my 7-year-old daughter is asking me what the word hijack meant. And I had to explain that to my daughter. To this day, it was heartbreaking. So I think it's important for people like Rachel and people like Luis Alvarez that are really trying to support others. We need to hear this story because you're right, Stephanie. Like the people, and there's a hero because he's saving the lives of so many people till 2092. So we thank God for Luis Alvarez and the Alvarez family. But it's important to go down to that museum at the World Trade Center there to look at what happened there. We need to keep that history alive because young people need to hear that story, just like the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. If those people that, those people that survived the Holocaust, they're far and few between now. If we don't hear those testimonies, who's left to carry that legacy, that story out there? We have to hear these stories. The young people have to hear this and not forget it. We should never forget it. It's our role as clinicians, as people, to share that story and to do what Rachel did yesterday, coming off the plane from Florida. And here's a clock that they had in the park there. The clock is today. We are reminded that this time is now. So there's no numbers on this clock. Every number is the word now, now, now. And we all have to remind ourselves that the time is now. We may not have time after that. So just a beautiful tribute yesterday.
And I think the big takeaway even from that is, like you said, none of us know how much time we have. I mean, let's, not to get too deep, but why play small? Right. Why allow ourselves to be in relationships that are not the best ones for us? Why keep trying to force things to work that aren't working? Why not have the job that we love and do the things that we enjoy and spend time with people we care about? We don't know what's going to happen. So, like working on ourselves, one of the cool things that I get to do with working, with clients is that helping them achieve their best life helps other people achieve their best lives, and so on and so forth. So, all three of us on here, we are all doing things to help other people. And that becomes that butterfly effect, that the little bit that we're doing in the whole sea of the world is causing these huge ripples everywhere that we don't even know about. And because we are comfortable enough to do those things, we get to help so many other people. Those people who are still playing small and who aren't actually doing the things they want to do to help others, that's actually negatively affecting everybody else. Like, let's all join together, start doing great things to help each other, and imagine what kind of world that would look like.
Right. This is Kick on Healthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. We're here every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. We have the lovely Rachel Barcelona here. And this is a touching moment for me because during the pandemic, I lost 2 jobs, at the very outset. And we were all relegated to kind of be in our own homes for a couple of months, isolated. And I needed to get back. And I made a decision that I wanted to go out each and every day for 100 straight days with other people, giving frontliners and first responders and different people. But on the other hand, too, I did that for 100 straight days. But at night, I would have these shows. They were very raw because I told myself when I started this stuff, I was never going to do a one-on-one interview for a whole hour from my home. Well, guess what? For 100 straight days, I did a one-on-one interview from my own home each night. And Stephanie, I got to thank you because you helped me navigate through this StreamYard system and our friendship. And because of that, we teamed up Rachel Barcelona and Tyler Gianchetta to blossom even further. But Stephanie, you really helped me during that time. So I just wanted to take that opportunity now that Rachel is here because she flourishes in such a big way. And without your insight, but also guidance and support, I wasn't able to do the things that I was doing. So I want to thank you publicly for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I think that's what you get, the right people on your team, right? We can't do it all. So we need the right people on our team.
Right. And Rachel, I asked that question, how do you cope with these relationships, but also put out such great work? I mean, what was the biggest challenge in these relationships for you?
Well, just being in them because I know that they were never what I wanted at all, but I couldn't verbalize it. I think that's an autistic thing, but I don't know. I totally agree with the fact that we have to live in the present, and that's why that clock means so much to me. It always has to be now, and that's why I love to live for the now. This is a really personal story, but at the age of around 10 to 11, I have epilepsy, but I had my first near-death experience from that epilepsy, and I could have died there, but I'm still here. And from that experience, I just thought I have to live for the now. I have to live big and accomplish a lot. But those relationships, I saw a lot of people getting into them, but they weren't doing anything for me. Not that it isn't doing good for me now because the time is right and I was waiting because I took the time to love myself first. And that's the most important thing. I have a pin. I'm not wearing it right now, but it's from my favorite movie. It says, "Love yourself first." And that was a reminder for me to live in the present and love myself every day.
Wow. Stephanie, is that hard for people to kind of come to grips with, love yourself first?
Yeah. I mean, imagine how different it would be if everybody spoke to themselves the way they speak to people they love. You know, I have to train clients to speak to themselves like they would a small child. Like, you wouldn't curse at a small child. I mean, if you do, you've got other big issues. But we say really mean things to ourselves. So many of us, it's, "You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not capable. How dare you think that you deserve more than what you've been getting?" You know, questioning our worth, questioning, having the shame and guilt and all of these things, all those things that we internalize. If we were able to feel good about ourselves and actually use positive words when we thought and spoke about ourselves, things in the rest of our life would change. But it's affecting our jobs, it's affecting our friendships and our relationships because of how we first speak to ourselves.
Right. And I see Robin made a comment. Robin, I can't thank you enough for inviting Rachel and I yesterday. It was a beautiful, beautiful ceremony, bittersweet, and our hearts go out to you and the entire Alvarez family. But what you did yesterday and the planning for that park, Robin, is beautiful. And that's Robin right next to me, right between Rachel and I. And she's a former co-host with me at York College and different places, CW Post. She does great work. And she called me up when I was in Florida and said, "Steve, I want to invite you to this." And I asked her if I have somebody sing the national anthem. When I said it was Rachel Barcelona, she said, "Yeah, that's great." So she got it approved with the Nassau County Higher Administration in 15 minutes, and all of a sudden Rachel was singing the national anthem for this beautiful thing. And I got to say, the Alvarez family is beautiful, beautiful people, and we were all blessed to be part of that yesterday. So Robin, I know you're watching. Thank you so very much. And what do you have to say, Rachel?
Well, I was very honored to sing at that event. It was so much fun. I loved everybody there. And if I had any advice, I would say love yourself first, because it will reap many benefits.
Right. And Stephanie just shared, it's hard with your clinical work that you do. It's hard for men and women to love themselves first. And I guess we have to overcome that, because if you can't love yourself first, it's impossible to love others in a healthy way, right?
Yeah. If we don't start, because again, when we don't love ourselves, we're more than happy to accept breadcrumbs from other people. You know, it's that typical thing that people use as an example all the time is, you've got to use, you know, if you're in an airplane and it's going down, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. You know, it's the same thing. We've got to fill up our own cup. We've got to speak well to ourselves. We've got to really genuinely feel like we deserve healthy relationships, like we deserve the greatness that we are. I mean, you know, we talk about, you know, spirituality, whether you believe in God or, like I call it the universe, like whatever it is, whatever that thing that created us, made us beautiful, amazing, wonderful people just for who we are, just the way that we were created. So when we start talking negatively about ourselves, we're talking negatively about the fact that we were put here. There's a bigger reason for us to be here. And it's not just about us. It's about being a part of the bigger picture. And so if we can all realize, like, hey, I am loved and I am worthy purely because I am, not because I did anything, not because, you know, I'm any different than anybody else. I deserve, because I am here on this earth, and I deserve to have a joyful, happy, wonderful life. When we really start to feel that way, when other things come into our life that are taking away from that, we're like, I don't have time for that. I'm too busy living my best life and feeling really good. So we kind of push that to the side, like, do your thing, and I'm going to keep being happy and live that joyful life that I was put here to do.
Wow. I mean, those are great words. And Rachel, I mean, you're looking ahead to your future and to planning independence. How important is independence and getting your platform out there, but empowering others to teach them to be stronger young men and women? How important is that for you?
It's very, very important. I think that it is way up here right now. I don't know if you can see that up there.
But I mean, again, Stephanie, I mean, even during the pandemic, we've all had to reinvent ourselves, and I'm sure there's been a lot of unhealthy relationships, and we talked about that over the last months during the pandemic. Now that it's opening up, I guess you feel too that it's going to be more challenging for people, and Rachel brought this up too, that you don't want to jump into the first relationship because that might be a pattern that we all get into, or some people get into, that I just want to be with somebody. I don't care who they are. I just want to be in a relationship and get over this negativity. But that's not really the route to go, right, Steph?
Oh my gosh. So my husband David and I do a weekly show in our private Facebook group. And about 3 weeks ago, we did a show on whether or not you were actually ready to start dating, because we've been seeing that all over our private Facebook group where people are like, all right, pandemic's over. I got my vaccines. I'm out there. I want to start dating. I want to start meeting people. And they're putting the cart before the horse, because my first question is, okay, great. What have you done in between relationships that has allowed you to create a new way of being in relationships? Because here's the thing. If we don't heal the part of us that's been attracted to those toxic people, then we're bound to create those same types of people. If home to us is uncomfortable, then when we are looking for a relationship and that person feels like home, as people like to say, well, what you're saying is that person feels uncomfortable, but that's what love is. That's what I know. So a lot of people have this problem where they go from one relationship to another, or the opposite. They say, oh, it's been 10 years. I've just been celibate. I haven't had any relationships. I'm fine. I can see all the red flags a mile away. And I say to both of those people, what help have you gotten in between those relationships? Have you talked to a therapist? Have you had a coach? What has been your way of healing? And most of the time people say, I've done nothing. So then I say, well, then how do you expect things to be different? It's like that definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. They're because they haven't trained themselves to do something different, to have an outside expert perspective, give them different tools to use. So instead they're using the same tools they've always used. They're going to get the same results. It's not until you speak to a professional that you get the tools, you get the support, so that you can start thinking in a different way and make better choices. That little tiny bit of a shift, like if you're on a boat, you do that little degree, half a degree shift, all of a sudden you're going a completely different direction. Well, that's the same thing for us as human beings. You get that little shift, that little difference of perspective, and it can completely change the trajectory of the rest of your life.
Wow. Well, we're almost in the middle of the show. And we like to go back in the day. We have a couple of commercials. People could take a little break for a minute, but we want to show a back in the day commercial. So let's check this out. It's some people that you might know.
What's your favorite Entenmann's?
I have a passion for the raspberry Danish twist. Always so scrumptious and moist. And you know how sensual the color red can be. Entenmann's. What's your favorite?
What's your favorite Entenmann's?
My one wish. Ultimate crumb cake. Moist every time. Lots of cinnamon crumbs. Yum, it rubs me the right way. Entenmann's. What's your favorite?
Let me show you something millions use for an exciting tingly sensation. Signal mouthwash.
Signal cleans better than both leading brands.
So have fun, but keep it clean. Signal for a cleaner mouth.
That is Dr. Ruth and I Dream of Jeannie, Barbara Eden. You know them, right?
Two really amazing, powerful women. Oh, I love both of them. I can't decide.
Oh, wow.
But Dr. Ruth, she's one of my heroes.
Wow. What's your take on Dr. Ruth and her work, Stephanie, over the years?
I love Dr. Ruth. Dr. Ruth, I just remember, I'm just amazed, by the way, that Rachel even knows who they are, because I'm like, I remembered them when I was a kid, but the fact that Rachel knows them is pretty awesome. That shows you have good taste in television.
Yes.
I love the I Dream of Jeannie look. I'll take my hair and I'll do a braid and it looks just so fetching.
That's crazy. So, but I have a Dr. Ruth story. So anyway, I'm a baseball fan. So one day I was going to Shea Stadium with my friends. It was kind of rainy out, and I always got the cheap seats. But because it was rainy out, no one was sitting downstairs. So I said, guys, let's sit downstairs. We can be closer to the field. So it's about an hour before the game. We had this whole row, and all my friends were sitting there. All of a sudden, an entourage of people come walking down, and this little short woman is with them. So they and all of a sudden, when the person next to her said, "I think you're sitting in our seats," I said, "Okay, we'll just move down a little bit." So we sit down, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking at her. I said, "Wow, that is Dr. Ruth." So I'm saying, "Dr. Ruth Alzheimer." So that was a bad one. But anyway, I'm kind of looking at her. Now the game's starting, and people are starting to fill in. So as the game is going on, people are noticing, hey, that's Dr. Ruth sitting there. And I'm sitting right next to her. So then people started feeding me questions on a piece of paper to give to her to answer these questions. And some of those questions I can never repeat on this show.
I would ask one.
Oh, yes?
Like, she probably was teaching you how to put a condom over a baseball bat.
Well, there we go. Well, we had all kinds of crazy questions, and but it reminded me of all the great work, and it was a fun experience to see Dr. Ruth. And there's actually a documentary on her, so let's check out this little snippet.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
I like it.
This television program contains explicit sexual language and may not be suitable for all viewers. The host is Dr. Ruth K. Westheimer.
Hello?
You're not going to believe this woman. She has a deep German accent and she talks about sex. And I think we should do something with her.
In the early 80s, people did not talk about sexuality.
You have a certain list of words you can't say. Well, we said them.
And then let him insert his penis into the vagina from behind.
We didn't think it would explode like it did.
And then, of course, you got her own television shows.
Before I started to do television, the most important thing for me was education. While I was studying, I was a single mother. I got a position at Planned Parenthood, and I loved it. I never compromised, even when it was not popular.
Ruth, I'm placing you under arrest.
Are there parts of your past that you don't like to talk about?
Of course.
She's had a lot of tragedies in her life.
Having been raised with no family around, there was no place on earth for me.
She was a young child living in Frankfurt, Germany, when the Nazis came to power.
Because of my background as a German Jewish refugee, I had a sensitivity for the people who were regarded as subhuman.
Ruth started to shift awareness of HIV and AIDS.
There is no such thing as retiring for me. Hello? Say the word sex with more emotion. I have an obligation to live large and make a dent in this world. At 90, still talking about sex from morning till night.
Just yet another perfect example of, I mean, this woman experienced a difficult life. And here she was talking about something that was so taboo. I mean, I feel like now in 2021, talking about sex it still has a long way to go. Like there still needs to be a lot of conversations about it. But the fact that she was talking about it at a time where people were so taboo, it was not talked about. You know, and she was able to share that experience, even though it might have been uncomfortable because people were not in agreement with what she was talking about. She was still sharing her truth. And I think there's a lot to be learned from each of us sharing our truths.
Right. So, Stephanie, I mean, she's a pioneer, right? Not just for people advocates, but for women advocates to talk about difficult topics. And I think that's what we all do now, too, because sometimes things are difficult to talk about, but we must talk about these things to overcome them or to learn how to cope with them.
Yeah, and I was actually a health educator for 17 years. So I was the teacher that got paid money to teach kids about sex ed and drugs and alcohol, which was most of the teachers would be complaining about kids not listening. And I'm like, not a problem here. They're listening very intently to what I'm talking about. But you know, the fact that I even had the ability to teach that, you know, that wasn't really the way sex ed was taught in like the 50s and 60s was like a phys ed teacher saying, don't do it, or you're going to, you know, burn in hell, to then being able to share, you know, preventative measures and talk about STDs and talk about all the things that kids really need to know about, that adults need to know about. So I think that it was great that she was able to pioneer and to help women really get that voice, because I think, again, there's a long way to go when it comes to women really being able to feel that empowerment, but we're taking steps in the right direction. David, my husband, says, he's like, you know, he's like, these are the years of the women. He's like, women are finally learning the power they have. Be careful, guys. We're coming out for you.
Whoa. I'm getting part of the bid here. Rachel, what do you think about Dr. Ruth?
Well, she is one of my icons. She's done a lot for queer women, and she is just, wow. I can't put it into words how amazing she is.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's another situation where it's teaching history. She was part of the whole Holocaust scene and the tragedy that went on at that time, and she overcame that, and to help live large, live big, help others. That's what we were just talking about before we showed that clip. And that's what she did. It doesn't matter what the size of a person or anything. She took everything full force and taught and spoke what she believed in. And just like us, we can talk one-on-one in our sessions, but if you put a microphone in front of us, like we're doing right now, well, you know what? If we help one person realize or help to cope them through an unhealthy relationship, then it's all worth it.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's, you know, whenever I'm asked to do summits or podcasts or anything like that, I never ask as much about the amount of people that will see it. I just say yes, because for that exact reason, if I can share something, like I feel very often, you know, when what you do is a calling, for me, what I do is a calling. So when something comes in front of me, I take it as an opportunity that I'm being called to do that work, and that whoever is listening at that moment needs to hear what I have to say. So whatever comes out of my mouth, there's a reason why it's coming out. It's not just for me. It's coming out because there's some sensation that I have that it needs to be shared with whoever the audience is. So I think that, you know, that's great. If you're following what your heart tells you to, it's going to lead you in the right direction.
No doubt. This is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. That's Rachel Barcelona. We're tag teaming here today to really help others. Now, you know, the restrictions are lessening around the country in New York, and everything is kind of changing for the better. So it's really important now more than ever to really look at those relationships, and if they're unhealthy or healthy ones, and to really look to help yourself at this time, because now more than ever, you know, you have your whole life ahead of you, and what do you decide to do with it? And I see Rachel, she's here in New York, she's helping, she wants to be independent, she's talking about things that she's never talked about in a public setting. Why is that important for you today to talk about that?
It's very important because I don't like keeping things inside, and I think that we should talk about it. More often than not, you're told that you should keep things a secret because people won't approve of them. But I don't think that's true. I think the world that people should think that these issues matter, and I have a voice. I'm going to use it.
Wow. I think the women are taking over a little bit here. So Rachel and Stephanie. Now, Stephanie, you have a book. We have some new viewers out there to our show. Why don't you talk about your book a little bit?
So I wrote a book called Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, and there's now a workbook that goes along with it that's also called Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, available on Amazon. And, you know, the same kind of thing was I had this feeling that I had to share my story. And as uncomfortable as it was to share some of the parts of myself and allow myself to be vulnerable, I knew I had to do it in order to help others, in order for other people to realize that they did not have to suffer in silence. They did not have to feel guilt and shame for whatever they'd experienced, and that they too really could create a life that they were happy to wake up to every day. So I wrote that book. Actually wrote that book when I was pregnant with my second child. I was in like creation mode. I was just like, I was in mama creation mode. And I was creating a baby, creating a book, and creating my private group on Facebook that now has 14,000 people in it. And, you know, it's just amazing what we can accomplish when we just follow our heart instead of ignoring it. You know, we don't have to stay silent about things that are important to us. We don't have to stay silent because we think people aren't going to like us. In fact, speaking openly about the things that have affected us helps us, but it helps others see that they're not alone. Somebody has to be that person to reach out and share. And if you are the one to do so, then think of the amount of people that will be inspired by your specific story it just keeps going. So, you know, for those of you who are afraid to share, I read my book. I definitely share some intimate details about my life and my experience. You know, go out there and start sharing what you've experienced. The world needs to hear your voice.
You know, Stephanie, you alluded to the fact that you and your husband you work together cohesively and lovingly and to help others. And you and I met, you know, a couple years back, and we do this. Why is it important? The aspect of, there we go. We were promoting the book around a holiday time, and it's a wonderful book. And your husband, Dave, is an amazing guy, has overcome so much, you know, recently. So God bless you, sir. And look forward to seeing you again. But why is it important to kind of have that balance when you have a show or teaching, when you have that male-female perspective? It's kind of unique at times.
It is. And our clients love the fact that we do have that male-female perspective. I would say, you know, in some ways, my husband's a little bit more the spiritual one, and I'm the more grounded one. So we have a little bit of that yin and yang going on. And I joke around that if he didn't have me to ground him, he'd be off in outer space somewhere, because he's so into being like more spiritual and whatever. So we have that kind of connection. But I think it's important. I just had someone reach out to me today and say she really genuinely believes that all men are out to get her, that they're not genuine, they're not honest. And I think that when they meet someone like my husband and someone like you, and they see how genuine you are, you know, how genuine my husband David is, how much the intention is only to help and to be supportive, I think it gives people hope that they can find someone like that they can find a good guy, a good woman, someone that they feel comfortable with to be in a relationship with, where they feel safe. Because so many people don't feel safe in their relationships. So they see that interaction, they see that male-female perspective, you know, they get a little bit of the best of both worlds and see different ideas, different thoughts, you know, and my husband David is not like, he's not the typical guy that's all like macho and, you know about sports. My husband David, you know, he's like, I guess that's football. Like, he's not a sports guy at all. But I think it's important for people to see that experience, like, oh, so guys can come from all these different perspectives. They don't all have to be into sports. Like, my husband's more of a musician. That's like more of his thing. And like spirituality for you, Steve, like you've got your things, and we're all different types of people, not just based on who we are, you know, sexuality or, you know, anything like that. We're also very different people as individuals.
Right.
I mean, I guess, but if it's like kissing a wall with a guy, then sorry.
But Rachel, almost out of time. What's some advice you'd give young people that are in an abusive relationship or unhealthy relationship but afraid to express themselves? What advice would you give them?
Well, definitely just try to love yourself first, because there's something in there. I know it's hard, but you're gonna get through it. It was very, very hard for me, and sometimes it still is. But we all have something we can work on, and we're going to get through this together.
Wow. Well, Stephanie, another show in the books, and we definitely met Rachel Barcelona exclusive interview kind of with her, because she has not shared some of the things that she shared. And you got that out of me too a couple months ago. I've never shared different things, but we keep talking and you don't know who's watching. But Stephanie, you do a wonderful job. I'm so thankful and blessed that we're friends and that we do what we do, because it's a calling, all about paying it forward. Like Dr. Ruth, we have to live large here. The time is now. When you see that clock, the time is now, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. Yep. We're guaranteed right now, and that clock symbolizes how we all should live. And Rachel said it best earlier. And Rachel, thank you so very much for doing what you do and sharing the love.
No problem.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have her back on. But Stephanie, we have some outstanding guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have someone really cool next week, that Denise, and it's going to be a great show. Yeah, I'm excited. I've known Denise now for a while too. And when Denise said she wanted to come on our show, and I talked to her about it, and I started to share, she had shared something. It's funny how, again, just speaking your voice and you don't know why you're saying it at the time. I made a mention of something about you, and she was like, oh my gosh, me too. And so we started talking about that, and then you guys instantly connected. And so, it really, again, don't be afraid to shut your voice down. Share what feels like needs to come out. The right person is there to hear it. Yeah, I'm so excited for this show next week, because Denise, we definitely see eye to eye on so many things. I'm not going to say what they are. You're going to have to tune in next week. And so you have to check that out. But Denise, and if you're watching, God bless you. And can't wait till you come on our show next week. Stephanie, thanks for all that you do. Thank you. And thank you for everything that both of you do. Rachel, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Steve, thank you for all the great work that you do. And we'll see all of you next week for our amazing guest, Denise. Yep. Thank you so much. God bless.